All right. Hi, Willow. How are you doing today?
Hi, Amber. I'm doing well.
All right. Would you like to just give us a quick personal introduction before we get started?
Sure. Yeah. Very quickly, my name is Willow Osage Christensen. I live in San Diego, and I am the Senior RF Validation Manager at Quantal RF. I've been in semiconductor test and validation for about 10 years now, since I graduated from UCRI.
Nice. Thank you. And would you like to give us a quick little intro into like what RF validation is?
Yes. Yeah. So I think at the broadest level, we all know that there are semiconductor chips that go into everything, pretty much cars, phones, routers, anything with technology, right? Um, those chips are mostly designed, designed everywhere, but the ones that I do are designed here in California at my company. Then they are shipped out to Taiwan, they're all fabricated, and then they come back on silicon wafers. When they come back on silicon wafers, we physically have the product. And my job is to take that product and design hardware and software to interface with it before it is integrated into the phone or router or final product. From there, I'm able to basically make sure that it works. So I'm in the R&D department. I work closely with the designers, and they say if they expect this performance and I'm measuring this, we work together to figure out where the differences is and what can fix it.
Right, perfect. Thank you so much for that. Now let's jump into the questions. First question, how did you become interested in this field, and what motivated you or inspired you to pursue this field?
Yes. So starting in high school, I knew I wanted to do something in STEM, mainly because I was good at it, I could do it, and I knew that it would have a good ROI or return on investment from my college degree. Um, I chose physics specifically to major in my undergrad. Um, Not on a lot. Basically, we had AP Physics in my high school. I did physics and AP Physics, and I enjoyed it. I had a great teacher. And I also felt that I felt kind of a connection to physics, that it was almost the underlying science or understanding to a lot of other things. So I thought if I didn't have an exact goal, I could start with the broad basics, learn how to think, learn the bot, learn like the basics, and I could build off of that when I found something that I really became interested in. Through my undergraduate career, I did a lot of undergraduate research, so kind of academia focused, writing papers, physics research, plasma physics, astrophysics, particle physics. And all of that was very exciting. But the day-to-day work I did not like. And I luckily found out about that early. And I knew that I couldn't see myself doing this for my PhD for 7 more years. And then once I got it, I would be doing this for 40 more years of my career, right? I was like, this is not what I'm feeling. So while most people who got an undergraduate degree in physics went on to get their PhD, I had already decided that that wasn't my path, right? So I needed to figure out what my path was. So I think it was my junior year in undergrad. I started applying to a ton of internships in industry, like just anything remotely related to what I was doing. And I got rejected from most, almost all, right? You just send out tons. And I like to tell my mentees a lot, I don't think that is a reflection on me or my resume. It happens. And you just keep trying. And I got one. I got an interview and I got accepted, and it was awesome. And it was at Broadcom, which is the semiconductor company as well. And at the time, they were almost on the Irvine campus, so I could walk there, which was perfect. It was a huge company. I loved my boss, and I enjoyed what I did very much. And that was in semiconductor test, and I've been in semiconductor test for the next 10 years.
Amazing. It sounds like you really found like your passion early on, which is really nice.
Yeah, I found something I enjoyed. Yeah, I found something I enjoyed doing and that I could do well. And I I I really do like to stress to my mentees that I would not have been able to figure this out without trying other things first, without
Mhm.
finding out what I don't like. I didn't want to find out I didn't like it 5 years into a career and have to start over.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. I'm also a physics major, so I definitely understand that struggle. I'm going through it right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
All right. And then second question, how do most people get into this field and what are the common entry level jobs?
Unfortunately, I think this is one of those kind of joke jobs where entry level requires experience. That being said, the best way is an internship. And it's not like you're giving up a part-time job. Internships in this field are most all the time paid. So I would just highly stress if you're interested in this, get some sort of internship, get your feet wet. Even just a summer or something will let you get one of those entry level jobs.
Perfect. Good advice. Let's see. Next question. How relevant is your undergraduate major to your job now?
I personally believe it is very relevant. I am under the how do I say it? I'm under the understanding that the physics major was a wonderful springboard into everything. Do I remember my quantum physics equations? No. Do I use my quantum physics equations? No. But do I remember how I approached those problems, how I navigated having just things that were unbelievably complex and I was intimidated by? It taught me how to think, and it taught me a fundamental basis of how I would say a lot of engineering works, and I'm personally in engineering now. So I believe it's extremely relevant. Unfortunately, I did not believe that I could get a good engineering job or continue in a good engineering career without physically the word engineering on my resume. So I ended up getting a master's in electrical engineering. And that I don't think I'm using more of that stuff in my day-to-day time. I think the main thing I'm using of that is the word engineering on my resume. I think I'm using most of the skills that I learned in my undergraduate physics.
All right. Thank you for that. That's very insightful. Let's see for the next question. What skills, abilities, etc., are essential to success in your job?
The biggest skills that I look for when I'm hiring for my team are attention to detail, very well organized, good at documenting their work, and a questioning mind, meaning that you don't take things for granted, right? If I hand you a test script and I say run this test, you don't just hand me the answer back. You look at the answer and you say, does this make sense? Now that is what I'm looking for in doing the day-to-day skills of being a validation engineer. I think those are the most important. As far as now that I'm a manager, I think all of those skills still apply, but it also takes now I need to be a little more results driven and I have to kind of have a positive energy and attitude towards the day and the work to help lead my team.
All right. And next question. What is something that surprised you most in the first couple of years of your job or even the last couple of years?
So what I wrote down for this answer was actually what surprised me at the very beginning in my internship. So I mentioned earlier that I got an internship at Broadcom and they're a huge company, they have many interns. I was actually hired on full time. I had a job lined up. They said, you're going to graduate, we want to hire you full time. That does not happen very much with a lot of Broadcom's interns. A lot of the other managers were kind of shocked that I was given that opportunity. Now I do think I'm amazing and great, whatever. I hope that was the reason. However, I was told from my boss that I was the best intern they ever had, mainly because I was not on my phone. And I was like just there at the job and focused. And that was the threshold to be the best intern they've ever had and get hired as a job. I was shocked because I was putting so much more into it. I was like, I need to show off, I need to get a job, I need to do well. And not saying I wish I had done less. I loved what I did, but just knowing that like whatever in my mind, me going like 80% or 90% was like what most of the managers they had seen was like way beyond what other people's effort they had put into it. So I think I was very surprised. I thought like as an undergraduate, I was like, I'll never compete, right? I see all these people with triple majors and parents in the industry and all these advantages, right? And while those are helpful, you just need to show up and do the work and it will be recognized. And if you come with a willingness to learn, you're gonna go far.
All right, that's great to hear. I'm surprised that like the threshold is so low for like best intern.
I was shocked. I mean, that surprised me. I mean, I'm sure there are other interns that don't look at their phone, right? But that was not their experience.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, all right, next question. Are you able to establish a work-life balance in your field?
But yeah, I'd say definitely. Um, I have a 3-year-old son, and I find time to do this, to excel in my career and get promoted and make my way up. Um, it's highly dependent on the company that you work at. When I worked at very large companies, the workload tends to be a bit smaller, and it's easier to have kind of hours off and budget that. Now that I'm working at a small company, my current company, you really see how your day-to-day work affects the company as a whole and the success of the team. And you want to contribute more. You want to keep adding things to your plate and doing things. So there is a lot of work. But that being said, we are very project based. And so there are times when we are very focused on getting something done, and there are times when we are a little bit more lax. And because we are project based instead of like reactionary based, we can, if we are getting our projects done on time, it matters more the results that we turn in versus the hours we are physically here. So I'm within reason able to kind of set my own schedule around my son's needs, and I don't feel like I'm missing his little league practices or things like that. So especially when you compare it to like some other jobs that are like the typical like high achieving good jobs like lawyer or doctor or whatever. I think if you do lawyer, doctor, engineer, you are by far the best work-life balance in like engineer. I can't speak to like if I had gone into academia and been a postdoc in physics, but maybe someone else will.
Or who had started in this industry?
Um, this one I thought a lot about. Um, and I think what I came up with was when I had first started, maybe not the internship, maybe not the first year because I was learning, but once I feel like I got my footing, I wish I had started looking at the bigger picture of my job earlier. And I say that meaning it is wonderful to know the intricacies and details of your very specific job, but you also need to know how that factors in to the end user and the broad customer and just a general understanding of what you are doing. I'm not going to try to quote someone, but I've heard this thing that was like, if you can't explain what you're doing to a 5th grader or like a 5-year-old, you don't really know what you're doing. Like you can't dumb it down. And so I interviewed some people that had worked at really big companies for like 15 years, and they know their little specific jobs so well And they can tell you, I wrote this code and I run this test and these results look like this. And if this happens, I do this. And then I ask them, so why do we need that test to look good? Why do we need that result? How does that impact when someone is watching a video on their phone? They have no idea. And it took me a while to get to this place, and I think it would have been something I would like to look at sooner in my career than I started.
That's really interesting. I had never really thought about it that way. All right, and final question, what advice would you give to someone considering this type of job?
I would say go for it. I think that semiconductor test and validation is a great career. I love it, at least at my current company. I don't get the Sunday scaries coming into work, you know. I'm excited to go to work. I'm excited to do what I do. In relation to most jobs, it pays well from the start. You can hit the ground running and do well for yourself. And if you choose your company right, there's a lot of potential for growth. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot better work-life balance than some other careers that I have noticed, specifically in engineering. Also, I think personally, not just semiconductors, but semiconductor tests is a little bit further away removed from the AI scariness of being taken over, because there's so much you do physically and that is not repetitive. Like with my hands, like my job is 100% in person. I can maybe work a little bit remote if I need to, but it's in person. It needs to be done with your hands. You need to see things. You need to figure it out. So I think there is a long path for this specific career, and I think it's a good one. And so I would say go for it. And I think a lot of the advice, I don't know that I would say much more than I have said previously, right? For my first couple of answers at the very beginning, don't get discouraged when you apply for things. Keep going. Also, show up, be present, try hard at your job, your initial job, right? Get a good reputation for working hard and being someone that can be relied upon. I don't know that I would advise you to get a master's. I spoke about why I felt like I needed it, but I know UCI now has the applied physics, which I think is like almost half engineering, half physics. And I think that's a great one that you could just jump straight into something like this with. And I think that's the main piece of advice. Also, along the lines of like, don't get discouraged, is don't be discouraged to not apply either. If you read a job qualification and it says you need 4 bullet points, right? You're like, I only have 3. Doesn't matter. If you have 1, apply. Like, if they don't like you, they're going to say no. But chances are they're not going to care that you're missing some, right? I don't think I've ever applied and or maybe gotten that I was like technically 100% qualified for. But I think I'm doing great at those jobs. And the people that hired me are happy that they hired me. So don't feel like you need to be the exact person written on the resume. If you read the responsibilities of the job and you believe that you can do it, well, apply. For sure. And that applies way more to when you're starting out for your initial first internships and jobs. Maybe now I need to be a bit more qualified because we're getting a little up there, but initially starting out those first few 5 years, go for it. Go for everything.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time and all your advice. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. That's it.
That's it. Just
Okay.
gonna